Hey everyone, and welcome to the Class 1A podcast. My name is Andrew Nimsger, and as always, I'm alongside Dylan Beal and James Graham today, but it is a little bit different, and I don't want to go too much in depth with this because not much will be changing, but we're actually live over on youtube.com, youtube.com/class1A. We just figured, hey, we already record everything. It's already all set up in OBS. Why not push the live button and go over onto YouTube as well? So if you ever do want to check us out, we will be live streaming the episode sometime between 9 and 10 a.m. on Saturday mornings PST. And really, it's going to be the same old podcast. So it's not like you're going to hear us talking to people in chat the other time. It's just really a chance for if you guys want to come over and watch the reactions live. Or towards the end, we're always going to give people the opportunity that might be in chat to ask questions there, just to give more people chances to interact and share their thoughts about the episode. But outside of that, it is going to be completely normal and not much else is going to change. So just giving you guys another opportunity to listen and interact with us if you want to. But if not, just supporting and watching on the YouTube or listening to the podcast platform, however you're currently doing it, is always appreciated as always. So leaving those 5-star reviews, following the YouTube channel, subscribing, and all that is super appreciated. Also, you can keep up to date with us on everything we do over at twitter.com/class1apod. But now that I kind of went through that, how are you guys doing today? How are you feeling about this most recent episode?
I'm feeling pretty good. There's a lot of mystery stuff going on still with Hawks that is keeping me pretty engaged with it, and I'm pretty excited about this agency stuff. It looks like we're gonna hop around between like a couple different work studies, which is kind of what we were talking about. I think it was 2 weeks ago, James, that we were talking about
Yeah.
that might be some pretty good areas to go into. So I'm excited. I want to see the class do some stuff.
Yeah, I think we explicitly talked about like how My Hero could do filler, and like I mean, this is where this is like warranted filler that we want because we get to see other interactions and stuff like that. So yeah, the agency stuff I think is the biggest draw for me right now. That's what I'm really excited about.
Yeah, I don't want to say that we called it perfectly, but we kind of called it perfectly.
We did call it perfectly. We know what we're talking about.
Whatever you guys want to believe. But I agree. It was a great episode, and I think that feel kind of conversation will be interesting down towards the end, because if you guys don't know, they started doing like team up, like spin-off series and all that kind of in manga version as well. And I think you could literally make a good 20-30 chapter. I mean, we saw in this episode every single person from class 1 or B and where they're at. I think you could do a couple of chapters in each every one and pretty much have kind of a whole side spin-off manga just from their work studies experience. So that is actually very cool. But we can talk about all that later, because today we're here to talk through episode 15, titled One Thing at a Time. It starts off with Hawks returning back to the mansion and giving a status report to the Metal Liberation Army, but we also see that all the League of Villains are there besides Shigaraki. None of them seem to expect anything and really fully believe that Hawks is working with them, pretty much even praising him for all the work he's doing and how helpful he's going to be. And then as he leaves, Hawks listens in on the group conversation, reaffirming the idea that in 4 months they will attack, and Toga says that Shigaraki will destroy everything. From there, we do get a couple of jump cuts between Endeavor figuring out Hawk's notes again, while also Hawks walking around the mansion, trying to get the information and just kind of talking through what he's trying to do there. Endeavor realizes that these mandated work studies by the Hero Commission were pretty much just to make sure that all the students were ready to fight villains, and thus he does end up saying that he's going to work with Deku, Bakugo, and Shoto, or pretty much when they all got here at first, he's like, I'm only going to worry about Shoto. I don't care about the other two of you, because he realizes he needs to make sure that all of them are ready. At the same exact time, we also do get to see more jump cuts to where everyone in Class 1A and Class 1B are working on their work studies and kind of seeing where they're all at. Very interesting and fun to see some of these combos. Endeavor asked Deku and Bakugo to quickly explain themselves. Deku basically says that he wants to work on being able to use and switch between his multiple powers / quirks that we know more easily, while Bakugo wants to learn what he isn't capable of currently doing, because he pretty much believes he can do everything he wants right now. Shoto reiterates that he's not here because Endeavor is his father, but instead to use Endeavor to grow stronger and become his own hero. Endeavor, Deku, Bakugo, and Shoto head out in the city, and Endeavor's walking around talking about the basic types of hero arcs, how the most important things right now that all of them is going to need is experience to reach their goals. He sets this loose goal that if they are able to beat a villain faster than Endeavor does, that it means that they are ready, and it becomes very clear very quickly that they are not going to be even close to being fast enough to do it yet. And pretty much throughout the rest of the episode, we actually get a lot of good hero advice from Endeavor. Actually seemed like he knows what he's talking about regarding how to use their quirks, how not being fast enough in the real world can cost a life, while in school it's just a mistake. And then kind of talks through at the very end of the episode how you only want to worry about doing one thing at a time and growing, and talking about this parallel processing of how it's going to be the best for Deku to learn how to control all of his powers, because it's how Endeavor learned to grow his power. So that was a short recap. The episode was a lot of talking, so really talking and doing a long recap about all the talking doesn't make much sense because we all just watched it. So instead, I want to take a step back and kind of talk through the bigger picture things with you guys as always. And I think the one that we're all interested in is kind of the Hawks super spy stuff. I mean, it's becoming a very big part of the season. Obviously, the Metal Liberation arc or army is very much becoming a main thing as well. And where do we think this is leading? Obviously, just up to this 4 months from now, this is all just going to be a big training montage until then when this all dukes out.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I kind of like wrote down here that I think is interesting is it's setting up for just Hideout Raid Arc 2.0, except this time instead of just like one base, it's all of Japan, which is cool, right? I don't know how Hawks fits into that. If it's going to be like Hawks kind of already has the information, so like, does he go to the wayside here in the next 4 months of where I don't know, he's just sitting there, or is there like more information here that we don't know?
And
Yeah,
really
he like.
go on.
Oh, go ahead. I was gonna say, like, you know, the nice part about it is you can tell he's actively like looking for more stuff, like, you know, the cafeteria interaction and stuff like that. Like he's gathered information. He does have like a lot of like relevant information, but you can tell he's not really satisfied with like what he knows, and he's like, all right, like they're still keeping like a close eye on me. They're still really like monitoring where I can go in this giant mansion-esque compound thing they got going on. So something tells me that like there's probably still going to be more to it. It's just what that is, because there's really been no indication one way or another like what more you could get out of this, right?
And yeah, he even kind of walked through exactly the information he's still trying to gather. And pretty much, it's just always kind of best to have an inside man leading up to any kind of attack like this,
Yeah.
so that they can just keep kind of parlaying the information to the Hero Commission as it is. But almost this whole Hawk super spy stuff, while it was all super interesting this episode, and I love Hawks and I love having them around, what really was most interesting to me was seeing the League of Villains here and why they're there. We pretty much saw the one like 2-second flashback where it said 9 days ago when Shigaraki had destroyed an entire city. And then now we see the rest of the League of Villains here with the Metal Liberation Army. And Shigaraki, as Toga says, in 4 months is going to destroy all of Japan. Which pretty much means that Shigaraki is also going through like a 4-month training montage, while all of like Class 1A and Class 1B are just going to be doing that for 4 months. So I think it's super interesting to learn more about what Shigaraki's doing, but also more of how the League of Villains became entwined with them, because as we saw, they didn't really care much about doing that with the Shihatsuki. They ended up pretty much betraying them. So now that they're doing it with a different group, the first time we've seen them since then seemed really odd to me.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting because usually Twice and Toga are their like ambassadors, I would say, like to other groups. And it was actually all of them there at the table, which is
and
really
they seemed
interesting.
entwined too. Because like Spinner was talking about morale even, and I guess Dabi wasn't just kind of talking about Deku Bakugo and such, but Spinner was on top of morale, which means that they're very much entwined and have more of a leadership role, unlike in the Shihatsuki where it was more of a partnership role.
Yeah, I think it's the big thing is that they've actually like worked themselves into like the officer core of this like organization, right? Like, I mean, they control very, very relevant and very important things. So it is a partnership in a degree, but it's almost like it's not even like a more like a merger. If that makes a bit more sense, I think. So
yeah, because it seemed established. Obviously, they didn't write the Metal Liberation book. They didn't write anything kind of like that, and it was kind of more off Destro's followings, which we have seen the League of Villains, or I guess Shigaraki specifically, just use someone else's like ideologies to grow. I mean, he did it with Stain, is that he kind of built off of Stain having that video, and that's how he grew kind of the League of Villains movement there. And now he's doing it again. So it does line up very closely with what Shigaraki and the League of Villains has done in the past. And I agree. It seems to be a little bit more of a shared responsibility, and we don't know who half of these people are in the background. So it'll be very interesting, and it almost feels like we'll have to learn more about it at some point, get some backstory or something, because it seems weird just like going forward. Oh yeah, these 5 characters are here. League of Villains are just part of the Meta Liberation. Accepted. Like there needs to be some explanation of that at some point.
Yeah. And we talked about this before, but League of Villains has always been like a parasitic kind of group of where they always just latch on to other people. And that's what it seems like here is they're latching on to this Meta Liberation army, kind of using what they got like for their own gain. Is there a betrayal coming? Like they always end up betraying like the people that they latch onto. Who knows? But I think where this might lead is like we keep seeing Hawks like try to like break into this circle. Maybe like the unveiling of like how this all happened is just when he breaks into that circle and he like maybe has a seat at this very table.
Oh, we still need to figure out what actually happened with Best Genius too, didn't we? Like we just saw the bag and we never really saw the conclusion of that, did we?
That's where it stopped. That's as far as it went.
So it'd be surprising that if even after that he's still not trusted, because we're all just making an assumption that he just killed Best Genius, right? I mean, that was a body bag and a knife, right?
As Dylan so perfectly put it, it was a Best Genius size bag. Yeah. So it's it's
interesting that even after that, that just makes me feel like he'll never fully be trusted, because at that point you killed the number 3 hero, number 4 hero, and you're still not fully in. That seems as if he'll always kind of be in this intermediary kind of role.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to like predict like how, because I don't think we've seen like a definitive gain of trust. Like we haven't seen like a growth of trust throughout the entire thing. Like Hawks almost seems fairly established in like what he's doing for them as like a double agent kind of thing, but that's really about it. I don't think we've actually seen him like gain more privileges or like gain access to more information that he's not already kind of like allowed to know. So I'm not too sure.
Yeah, but go on.
I was say one thing I want to talk about with Hawks though is that he's busted. His feathers can hear sounds. That's broken. That's so broken, right?
And the only reason he couldn't hear the entire conversation is because they were closed. So if he was open and he was however far away, he'd be able to hear every single word, but he was only able to hear just a little bit when he was up close. Like, that's ridiculous. And that's kind of a weird, I mean, he kind of explained how it works, but that's just a very loose interpretation of like how his feathers work. So it is cool, but it does seem busted.
Yeah, I don't know. I usually my hero's pretty good about describing like things and like explaining away things in a very rational way. This was a little stretch. I think a little.
Yeah, this is the first time we've had like a totally irrational explanation. It's just like, yep, that's it, and you have to like take it as that. And
yeah, his feather. He feels the sound waves from his feather, so he can just understand everything they're saying. Like, I don't think that's how sound works.
That's not how sound travels, or I mean, it is like I guess, but like,
well, it is how sound works, but like it isn't how picking up on those sounds works unless you're like, I mean, he is the number 2 hero, so like, sure, sure, he's the number 2 hero.
Give it to him.
We'll take
that just explain it. I mean, Endeavor can walk on buildings with fire. Hawks can fucking use a feather to listen to things.
That makes total sense, though, man. That makes total sense. I won't argue that.
So, I guess really the last thing, is there anything else from kind of the whole Hideout raid arc, the Hawk stuff at the beginning of the episode? Are we all kind of ready to move on to all the agency stuff?
Yeah. No, we're good.
So I guess, yes, I am very happy. Obviously, you kind of saw it when Todoroki, Deku, and Bakugo all showed up, and you said, I only care about Todoroki. You kind of assumed that wasn't going to stay the case forever. So I'm happy they just kind of nipped that in the bud right away. Like, okay, I'll work with all 3 of you, because that makes the arc more interesting rather than Shoto and Endeavor working on stuff, and then Deku and Bakugo are just working with the sidekicks. While the sidekick characters are very cool, it's more fun to see them working alongside Endeavor. And obviously, we saw from this episode, it's going to be incredibly useful for them, and is going to be the reason why Deku is eventually able to use Black Whip, which is, I think, what we all want to be here as soon as possible, because it seems to kind of be setting the foundations, as Endeavor literally said that, yep, if you just learn how to master one thing and then go on to the next one and keep adding it to your rotation, that's how you just kind of develop and get new powers. Well, that's going to set up directly of how Deku is going to obtain new quirks in the future, so it's going to be very, very cool that we get that, and unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to be seeing that development next week, but whenever we do see Return to them, it's going to be fun. And I'm assuming it's going to be a week or 2 time jump in their agency work, and they're going to be much more improved already.
Yeah, I mean, it might seem a little bit slow right now in terms of like a story, but like this is definitely like super important stuff for just like realigning Deku's thinking about his quirk, because it's a bit overwhelming, right? Because like he has his main ability, of which he's still not even like fully mastered. He has these other like sub abilities of that he's still working on, and then now it's like, okay, by the way, you're about to have a whole bunch of new quirks coming. I think this like mini like realignment for his thinking around those quirks is pretty important, just so the development makes a lot of sense, and it's not just, oh, congrats, now you have all these abilities.
And I think it was I think Endeavor did a really good job of going through it too, because Endeavor is somebody who was like, he even like touches on the fact without saying it directly that All Might was like pure natural gift. You know what I mean? Like it's natural gift, but it's not. But he knew how to take One for All and use it incredibly effectively, whereas Endeavor had to work and grind and like do his like his parallel processing, right? And I think he like in as far as like learning how to manipulate and like use your quirk properly, Endeavor I think is such a better teacher than All Might, because he like I mean like Deku just doesn't know what to do with any of this shit, right? So I think that this is just such a good thing for him, more than like, I mean just as much as the other two, but I mean especially where he is going to have like multiple quirks to deal with. He's just he's going to benefit from this greatly. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen like a couple times now that All Might isn't a good teacher when it comes to quirks. He's really good about teaching how to be a hero, but in terms of the quirk, Deku had to learn a lot from everyone else besides him. The only thing he really learned from All Might was like, the initial working out, I guess, and then the what was it called, Air Force, right?
Yeah,
and that's all he really learned from All Might. But besides that, he's been learning from his friends. He's been learning from Grant Torino. And I think this is just the next evolution of that, and it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
and it's more fun than having a one-stop shop for everything. If we did,
exactly,
I mean, as much as I love All Might, if every single time you need to learn something new, it was 2 episodes with All Might talking them through, that would get a little bit boring, and that's not very anime anyway, so you wouldn't have seen that in all main shonen. They're always jumping between different teachers. I mean, I feel like there's a lot more teachers in My Hero than some other anime, but nonetheless, it is very fun to see him jump from one to the other, and it's a more effective way in how a real person in a real world would learn. You wouldn't go to the same person over and over again. You'd go to learn people that are pros at this or that to learn and improve. So it does make more sense in the universe to go about it this way. So I'm very excited to see all of this. I don't know how much more is going to happen in the Endeavor arc. I mean, at this point, if they want to stretch it out, they could just keep doing Monster of the Week every single week for the rest of the season if they really wanted to, and showing the small improvements, or it could wrap up and we're seeing Uraraka and Ko next weekend, but then maybe when we come back, it's like, oh yep, 3 months are over, 4 months are over, like you guys have improved a lot. Like they could go either way. Like the arc could end that quickly, or they could stretch it out for 5 more episodes, depending on how much they want to show the little improvement, or if they just want to say, hey, you guys have done great these last 4 months, and then kind of show one big fight of how they do that improvement. So either way, I'm going to be okay with, as long as it's done right. I think both approaches can be right, without feeling bad.
Yeah, so. I wanted to touch on something you went through in the breakdown of the episode, but like we actually saw everybody else in all these individual agencies and stuff like that, which I thought was really cool too. And it wasn't just Class 1A, it was Class 1B and stuff. Which I mean, it does set up for next week, which is filler, right? Like I mean, it's good filler because it's another agency. But I think it's just nice to see that they're openly setting up that they have options to go in depending on how they want to do the season, right? We could have the rest of the season of just other characters and other agencies, like Tetsu and Kirishima with Facom. I'd watch a whole season of that. You know what I mean?
He's probably there as well. We just didn't see him because he's
Amajiki's definitely there. Yeah, but like also another one I was really excited about was Shoji and Jiro with Gang Orca. I know Dylan and I have talked about Gang Orca and seeing how he operates and stuff like that. Like that'd be it's insight on how agencies work too, just not characters. So if they wanted to go into that, sick, because we've seen so many different varying agencies between this and Vigilantes, right? It's just cool to see more.
Yeah, which is kind of where I went off the beginning one. Because as cool as it would be, I don't want to see every single agency here, but I would read about it. Like if you gave me just like 30 chapters of this, like all these people doing their own stuff, a couple chapters each one, that'd be awesome. I'd love to read it. I'd love to get more of it, but it's not something I want to see right now because we just got Deku New and the new quirk. We have this whole Meta Liberation thing going on right now. If this happened maybe the second half of season 3, I would have preferred that. I mean, season 4, I would have preferred that over the School Festival arc and the Gentle arc. I think there are arcs where I would have preferred just to watch all of them going through and doing agencies and improving. But right now, it feels like things are getting so much bigger picture that put this in a spin-off side story or just show it here once and be done with it. And the Uraraka is fine. She's the next big character. He's a character we've already seen in a previous filler. So I'm not upset with that. But if they were to do another one this season, that's when I'd want to be like, okay, let's get back to the main stuff that we actually want to see where it develops.
Yeah, if this was early 2000s, this would be the whole season, baby.
This would be the whole season.
Yeah, this is valuable material. You can't squash it. Maybe even 2 seasons. Who knows?
It was, yeah, exactly. It wouldn't. The pain train would not stop, my friend. Like, oh my god! But like you could get OVAs of this shit too. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that works so well. Just like don't mess with the regular season. I mean, I think one episode out of the 25 for a non-canon agency episode is more than enough than what I need.
See, Andrew's just not experienced in the way of fillers.
Yeah, it's shonen. Shonen. It's the way.
It's not the way anymore.
Dylan and I were molded by it.
Yeah.
We're moving past that. We're growing up now, and so is shonen, hopefully. But anything else through the episode you really want to touch on? I think that's a pretty good wrap up on the most things we want to talk about. Obviously, next week, if there's anything big that comes up, we can always discuss there.
Yeah, I have one thing to add that just came to mind as I was thinking about everything about like this hideout raid arc 2.0, and now everyone is in agencies, and the agencies aren't in one city; they're across Japan. It literally just clicked for me that like, oh yeah, this totally makes sense. That like now that like this influence is spread out through Japan and everyone is spread throughout Japan, it just makes sense that the conclusion of this work study is that like they have these individual raids. That just like totally clicked for me, and I see now. I see beyond the veil.
I see.
It'll be sick. It will be sick. But for today, we need to decide who is going to be the Plus Ultra recipient. The person that went beyond that win Plus Ultra and deserves it more than anyone else. And each one of us will pick our own. And then we'll tally it up in the season to see who win Plus Ultra the most during season 5. And Dylan, kick us off.
Well, I'm here to provide the correct answer as always. I've never provided an incorrect answer before.
Never.
And my pick for this week is Endeavor. It's easily Endeavor. We were able to get some insight into just how intensive and how like micro perfect that his quirk is at this point of where he's chasing the villain. And not only is he going at incredible speeds and just using his quirk at like full force, but he's making these like slight micro adjustments to like accelerate and also like move and turn at the same time. And on top of all that, he's like corralling the villain into a certain area away from civilians. And his speed is just absolutely unmatched. He's the number 1 hero, and it's for a reason. And we get insight into why he goes Plus Ultra with his ability.
So, 1, his speed is matched by All Might and Hawks.
Not anymore. Not anymore.
By Hawks still. But
well, he's number 2.
But either way, I do agree that it is Endeavor this week. I didn't want to take away from it. I'm just saying that his speed being unmatched isn't quite true. But nonetheless, I agree. I mean, I think he's still not a great person, but as Todoroki said, the hero Endeavor is amazing. And this episode reinforces that idea. He knows how to tell people how to use their quirks. He knows how to use his quirk. And obviously, he deserves to be the number 1 hero here, despite what his home life is. This episode goes to show even more of how little he's thinking and that he's moving before the villains even have a chance to react. And that is the definition of Plus Ultra.
Yeah, he is a great hero, but Enji is a terrible man.
Yes. What do you got, James?
It is Endeavor, 100%. He's like one of the only people who have listened to a full Deku ramble and been able to actually like interpret it and then like spit back information that's helpful towards him.
I like the change in animation for the ramble, by the way. I like it going behind him instead of the purple spinning words. Much better animation. I hope they keep it that way.
Yeah, it's good. And honestly, he's one of the only instructors too who has really put Bakugo in his place, not because of like respect or like a teacher-student relationship, but out of like a pure respect of power. Like, and like we all know that's how Bakugo kind of like despite like very much being okay with being like respectful to like instructors and stuff like that. Like he respects power, and Endeavor like beat him at his own game at that too. So and like even like the nice little shot of like putting him in his place, being like that's gonna be your excuse. You're gonna keep using that, right? Like I like that. I like that he can do all of this, right? So yeah, NG needs some work, but Endeavor's doing good.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's a clean sweep. There has not been many this season.
Yeah, very few.
So with that, I'll take a quick second that if anyone in this chat and wants to ask a question, we can. Otherwise, I do have one prepared that I saw for TikTok, so we can do that one as well.
Saw from TikTok. All right.
Okay, so my question is going to be, how difficult would it have been to raise Hagakure? Since you could never see her, and how awkward of a birth would that have been?
So I have an example here, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I bring this back to way too much for a show about My Hero, but they answered this question in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Oh my
Of course
God.
they did. Of course they did.
Of where if you have an invisible baby, they just disappear. What
do you
and
mean?
It's terrible. They just disappear, and you can't find them.
Well, they found Hagakure.
I don't know how.
I mean, like, speaking as a medical professional, the birth is a non-issue. That you know where that kid is as soon as it comes out. That's not a problem. It's just keeping track of it afterwards. That is the big issue. I'm assuming they have like, I don't know. We know nothing about Hagakure's parents, so I'd be interested to know what their quirks are and like if they had quirks that actually like benefited them in raising her or something like that. Because yeah, like once you lose that kid, you are walking on very refined eggshells. Like,
well, I think the easy answer for this is that you put bracelets on them. You can't just like rip off or whatnot, because like most of the time babies have like some sort of like clothing on, right? And then whenever they don't, you just make sure that there's like a bracelet or something that they just can't take off, so that way you have like a semblance of where they're at least.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, even when you're like washing the kid, like even if you're worried about like hygiene and stuff like that, the kid is going to be apparent in the water. You know what I mean? Like it'll make a clear silhouette, stuff like that. So I even like
that's true. Like she still exists. So when water runs over or something kind of like that,
she's still there, right? Like there'll still be exactly right. So I think, the bracelet thing I think is probably the safest. Yeah,
cover in baby powder, just completely cover in baby powder
everywhere. Or have flour on your floor everywhere in your house, so you just see it walking around. Yeah, I think there's ways to do it, but I just thought it was fun, kind of a random thing, and we're mixed feelings in Hagakure anyway, so it's always good to.
What if the poetic way of this is that her parents are actually just blind?
That'd be horrible.
How's that poetic? Yeah,
how would a blind parent raise a child? I think they can. They very easily can.
He's right.
Like,
he's 100%
it's not like
right.
they can't. So it just makes sense. Like, yeah, right.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if the kid's invisible or not. They can raise it. They'll raise it regardless. Yeah, and they'll do things that a blind person would do to raise a kid, and it would work on Hagakure because the quirk doesn't matter. Quirk's negated. Counter her.
Solved. Easy. Next question, Andrew. Keep
All right,
coming.
More
You're
headcanon. More headcanon for Dylan. First, he makes up the entire story off of a 2-minute closer, and now he's just doing headcanon about Hagakure's family. What can't this man do? But
so gifted.
What I could do is luckily wrap up this episode for everyone that is listening. Thank you so much for tuning in, watching along, watching on YouTube, wherever you are doing it. As a reminder, if you're listening to on a podcasting platform, leave a 5-star review and go over to our YouTube at youtube.com/class1a and subscribe. Watch the videos there. We do a ton of content that isn't on podcasting services, so you can go over to YouTube and find even more My Hero Academia content. And we will be live streaming it on Saturday mornings now. If you want to tune in, ask questions, and interact with us as we are recording and just kind of talking through the episode as it just happened. So thank you all so much. We'll be back next Saturday recapping episode 16, which will be focused on Uraraka and Ko and their agency kind of episode. And we will be back then. See you next Saturday.